Okay, you're going to follow along on your handout and fill in the sheet for your observations of what's going on here. So first we are filling the left-hand trays with salt. These are going to be our negative tests because salt does not have protein or fat or starch in it. Then we're going to put the things that will be positive tests in the next column. We will start by putting starch into the first row, and starch will be tested by using iodine. So you can see the bottle that says starch test. We have a small amount of the iodine in the smaller bottle, which we will use. So what you want to do is observe what happens when we put it in the salt, which will be a negative test, and what happens when we put it into the starch. What is the difference in how the negative and positive test appear? You might want to stop here to record your observations. Next, we will do the protein test. So we're putting a sample of protein, in this case powdered egg whites, into the second column, and we'll use this light blue solution, Biuret solution, and put some in the salt, which has no protein, and some in the egg whites, which are mostly protein. Now this test will take some time to react, so we'll take a look at it later. After several minutes, you can see that the negative test is still light blue, but the egg whites have started to turn purple. For the fat test, we will take a small amount of margarine, which is mostly fat, and rub it into a piece of paper. And we can see that when we do that, the paper begins to look translucent. When we do the same test with salt, there is nothing absorbing into the paper, and so we don't see that translucence. So salt does not have fat. Now that we know what the negative and positive tests look like, we're going to test some other foods, in this case rice, and we're going to test them for the protein and for the starch, and in some cases we will test them for the fat. So we have rice in both the starch and the protein columns. Now we will test sugar. Sugar is purely a carbohydrate, so we're not going to test it for the protein, but we'll see if it is a starch. But we will compare sugar to powdered sugar, which is a mixture, and we will see if the powdered sugar has any of the starch in it, and if there are differences between that and the regular sugar. Since it is a mixture, we will also test the added ingredient for protein, which I'm putting in the bottom tray. So remember that the top row, we are testing for starch, and we are testing rice, and we are testing sugar. And then at the bottom, we have the powdered sugar, which we have also put the iodine in. This test reacts pretty quickly. So we can see there's definitely some starch in the rice. I'm going to try and add some more of the powdered sugar since it kind of landed to the side of the powdered sugar that was in that hole, and we'll see how that reacts. So you can see after some time has passed that it is clearly much darker. Now we will test the rice and the powdered sugar for protein. Remember, this takes a while to react, so we'll come back and look at it later. In the meantime, we will look at another food, pumpkin seeds. Now remember that seeds are going to have all of the nutrients needed for a plant to grow. So we're going to test it for all of the different nutrients here. We'll use 2 spots in the tray to test for the protein and for the starch. And then we will also put some on the paper and see if we can see if there's any fat in it. So this is the fat test for the rice, which doesn't really produce anything. This is the pumpkin seeds, and it feels rather pasty and greasy, though in looking at the paper it doesn't become nearly as translucent as the butter made the paper look. And then we will test a little bit of the powdered sugar, and the powdered sugar, again, like the rice, doesn't really do a whole lot. So now that we've had a little bit of time, take a look at our protein tests in the second row. So it's a little bit hard to see, but the rice is turned a little bit purple. The powdered sugar, not much of a reaction, and the pumpkin seeds kind of hard to tell. It's a little bit brownish red. Not light blue anymore, though.